The sound of breaking glass echoed through the luxury hotel bathroom as Summer Holt's phone shattered against marble tile. 3 shadows blocked the only exit, their hands reaching for the tech industry's youngest female CEO, worth $3.2 billion. Her security team was 3 floors away at the conference, her panic button ripped from her wrist and thrown into the toilet. In 45 seconds, everything she'd built would be gone, her freedom, her company, maybe her life, unless the single dad washing his hands at the sink was more than he appeared. Welcome to a story where salvation comes from the most unexpected places, where a quiet man with paint-stained fingers becomes a warrior, and where sometimes the people we overlook are exactly who we need most. Stay with me until the end and comment your city below. I'd love to know how far this story has traveled. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The charity gala at the Ashford Grand Hotel was in full swing when Summer Holt made the decision that would change everything. The ballroom on the 20th floor glittered with Seattle's elite, all gathered to celebrate innovation and technology and throw money at causes that looked good on their tax returns. At 29, Summer commanded a tech empire worth $3.2 billion. Her facial recognition software now used in airports across 40 countries. But right now, all that power meant nothing. The bathroom on the 18th floor was supposed to be empty, closed for renovation, according to the small sign she'd ignore. She ducked in to escape a persistent investor who couldn't take no for an answer, thinking 5 minutes of peace was worth bending a minor rule. The marble-walled space was dimly lit, only half the fixtures working, drop cloths covering sections of the counter. She'd just pulled out her phone to check on a server issue in Singapore when she heard the door lock click behind her. 3 men entered with the kind of coordinated precision that came from planning. The first was tall and wiry, wearing a hotel maintenance uniform that looked legitimate until you noticed the expensive watch. The second was broader, built like someone who spent serious time in the gym, his eyes cold and calculating. The third held something in his hand that made Summer's blood run ice cold, a syringe filled with clear liquid. "Miss Holt," the tall one said, his accent vaguely Eastern European, "please don't make this difficult. We just need you to come with us quietly." Summer's mind raced through her options with the same speed that had made her a billionaire by 25. Scream, but the bathroom was soundproof for the renovation, and the gala music was loud enough to drown out anything short of an explosion. Run impossible with 3 men between her and the only door. Fight she'd taken exactly 2 self-defense classes before her schedule got too busy, and these men looked like professionals. Her hand moved toward the panic button on her bracelet, a custom piece her security team insisted she wear. The broad man was faster. He grabbed her wrist with crushing force, twisting until she gasped in pain. The bracelet snapped off, and he tossed it into the nearest toilet with casual contempt. "Your security detail is watching the main entrances," the tall one continued conversationally, like they were discussing the weather. "The stairwell at the end of this hall leads to a service elevator. In 3 minutes, we'll be in a vehicle heading to the docks. In 6 hours, you'll be on a container ship to somewhere your money can't reach you. Well, not quickly anyway. Who sent you?" Summer forced her voice to stay steady, despite the terror coursing through her veins. "I can pay you triple whatever you're getting." The tall man smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. "Oh, we know you can. But our employer isn't motivated by money. They're motivated by revenge. Apparently, your facial recognition software identified someone they'd rather keep hidden, someone who paid a lot of money to disappear." The pieces clicked together in Summer's mind with horrible clarity. 3 months ago, her software had flagged a businessman in Dubai as a wanted war criminal from the Balkans. The arrest had made international news. She'd thought it was a victory for justice. Now she understood it was a death sentence that just took time to arrive. "My team knows where I am," she tried, but even she could hear how weak it sounded. "Your team thinks you're in the 2nd floor bathroom, where your phone's GPS signal is currently broadcasting from," the broad man said, speaking for the first time. His voice was surprisingly soft, almost gentle, which made him more frightening. Technology is wonderful, isn't it? So easy to manipulate when you know what you're doing. Summer threw her phone at the tall man's face in a desperate attempt to create an opening. He dodged easily, and the device shattered against the marble wall, glass and circuitry scattering across the floor. The man with the syringe stepped forward, and Summer backed up until she hit the cold tile wall. "This will make things easier," Syringe Man said. "You'll wake up somewhere safe. Well, safe for us anyway." That's when the other bathroom stall door opened. The man who emerged looked as surprised to see them as they were to see him. He was maybe 35, tall but lean, wearing paint-stained jeans and a faded band t-shirt that seemed wildly out of place at a charity gala. His dark hair was slightly too long, falling into eyes that were currently widening in shock. He had the kind of face that was handsome in an understated way, the kind you might not notice in a crowd but couldn't forget once you did. For a moment, everyone froze. Summer felt a desperate surge of hope. Another person meant a witness, maybe help, possibly a way out. Then the tall man laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Well, this is inconvenient. I'm sorry, friend. Wrong place, wrong time." The man in the paint-stained jeans raised his hand slowly, and Summer's hope began to die. He was going to run, or cooperate, or do whatever normal people did when they stumbled into situations way above their pay grade. Why wouldn't he? These were obviously dangerous men, and he was just some guy who'd picked the wrong bathroom. "Look," paint-stained jeans said, his voice carrying a slight southern accent, "Tennessee maybe. I don't know what's happening here, but I'm just going to wash my hands and leave. We can all pretend this never happened." "Afraid not," the tall man said, pulling something from his pocket. Not a gun. This was still a hotel, still technically public, but a knife, the kind that folded out with a practiced flick of the wrist. "Can't have witnesses. You understand?" The man in the paint-stained jeans looked at the common knife, then at Summer pressed against the wall with three men closing in, then back at the knife. Something shifted in his expression, something that transformed his entire bearing. The uncertainty vanished, replaced by a calm that Summer recognized from her most cutthroat board meetings. The calm of someone making a decision and committing to it completely. "Here's what's going to happen instead," he said. And his voice had changed too, carrying an authority that made even the tall man pause. "You're going to let her go. You're going to walk out of here, and we're going to forget this ever happened." The broad man actually laughed. "There's three of us and one of you, hero. And we're professionals." "I counted," paint-stained jeans replied. Then he moved. 6 hours earlier, Easton Brooks stood in front of his daughter's school, watching kids pour out of the building like water breaking through a dam. He spotted Sophia immediately, her backpack nearly as big as she was, her dark curls bouncing as she ran toward him. At 7 years old, she had her mother's smile and her father's stubborn determination. "Dad," she called out, launching herself at him with the kind of faith that only kids possessed, absolute certainty that he would catch her. He always did. "Hey, little bug," he said, swinging her up despite his back protesting. 35 wasn't old, but years of standing at an easel had given him the posture of someone twice his age. "How was school?" "Mrs. Patterson says my volcano painting is the best she's ever seen," Sophia announced with the confidence of someone stating an objective fact. "She wants to put it in the spring art show." "That's because you're brilliant," Easton said, setting her down and taking her hand as they walked toward the bus stop. His truck was in the shop again, the third time this month. "And humble, clearly." "You always say being good at something isn't bragging if it's true," Sophia pointed out, using his own logic against him like she always did. Too smart for her own good. That was his daughter. They took the bus back to their apartment in the Greenwood neighborhood, a one-bedroom place where Sophia got the bedroom, and Easton slept on the couch that had seen better days. The building was old but clean. filled with the kind of people who worked 3 jobs and still barely made rent. Their neighbor, Mrs. Kim, was cooking something that made the hallway smell like heaven. Below them, someone was playing guitar, the same 3 chords over and over as they tried to learn. Their apartment was small but filled with color. Easton's paintings covered every available wall space, some finished, most works in progress. Portraits mostly, capturing the faces of people he saw every day. The barista at the coffee shop, where he worked mornings. The bus driver who always waited an extra 10 seconds when she saw them running. The crossing guard, who knew every kid's name. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Can we order pizza tonight?" Sophia asked, dumping her backpack by the door and heading straight for her art supplies. She'd inherited his love of creation, though her medium of choice was sculpture. Their kitchen table was currently home to a clay dragon that was surprisingly anatomically creative. "Can't, bug. We had pizza last week. Budget's tight, until I sell a few more pieces." Easton was already pulling out ingredients for stir-fry, the meal that stretched furthest on limited funds. "But I'll make it fancy. Put little umbrellas in our water glasses." Sophia giggled, and the sound made everything worth it. The job at the coffee shop that started at 5 a.m., the evening shifts waiting tables at an upscale restaurant where people spent on one meal what he made in a week. The commissions he took painting pet portraits because they paid reliably, even though they slowly killed his soul. All of it was worth that sound. His phone buzzed. A text from his boss at the restaurant. "Need you tonight. Marcus called in sick, 6 to midnight." Easton looked at Sophia, already absorbed in adding scales to her dragon, and felt the familiar weight of impossible choices. The restaurant job paid 3 times what the coffee shop did, but it meant leaving Sophia with Mrs. Kim, who was kind but already watching 2 other kids. It meant missing bedtime, missing the stories they read together, missing the moment when she'd tell him about whatever was really bothering her, the stuff that didn't come out until the lights were off and the world felt safer. But it also meant making rent, meant keeping Sophia in the decent school instead of the one where metal detectors weren't enough, meant maybe finally fixing the truck instead of relying on Seattle's unpredictable public transit. He typed back, "I'll be there." The restaurant where Easton worked was called Elevation, a farm-to-table place in downtown Seattle, where tech millionaires took clients to impress them with their commitment to sustainable dining. The irony wasn't lost on Easton that he served $20 appetizers while doing math in his head to figure out if he could afford the marked-down bread from the day-old bakery. His shift started smoothly enough. Tables turned over efficiently, tips were decent, and he managed to avoid the new manager who seemed to think waiters were only slightly more valuable than furniture. Around 8, things got complicated. The Ashford Grand Hotel next door was hosting some tech charity gala, and the overflow guests had started filling Elevation's bar. Easton was wiping down a table when he overheard a conversation that would change everything, though he didn't know it yet. "I'm telling you, Summer Holt will be there," a man in an expensive suit was saying to his companion. Youngest female billionaire in tech. Made her fortune in facial recognition software. Brilliant and gorgeous, the whole package. "Isn't her company the one that caught that war criminal in Dubai?" the companion asked. "That's the one. Probably made some enemies with that move, but when you're worth $3 billion, you can afford good security." Easton moved on to the next table, thinking nothing of it. Rich people and their problems existed in a different universe from his. His concerns were making sure Sophia's shoes still fit, keeping the electricity on, and somehow finding time to work on the paintings he actually cared about instead of the commissioned work that paid the bills. At 9:30, his manager approached with a request that was phrased like a question but really wasn't. "Brooks, we need someone to run plates over to the Ashford for their gala. Catering emergency. Some mix-up with their regular staff. $200 extra if you can handle it for the next few hours." $200 was a week's groceries. Maybe new shoes for Sophia, the kind that didn't come from the thrift store. "I'm in." The Ashford Grand was everything elevation pretended to be. Genuinely luxurious instead of performatively so. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, the kind of art on the walls that Easton recognized from textbooks. He made 3 trips hauling equipment and supplies through the service entrances, invisible in the way service workers always were to people with money. On his 4th trip, needing to use the bathroom, he ducked into the one on the 18th floor. The sign said it was closed for renovation, but the door was unlocked and he really couldn't wait to get back down to the 1st floor. The lights were dim, half the space under renovation, but it was empty, and that was all that mattered. He was in the stall, about to finish up, when he heard the main door open. Voices, low and urgent, then a woman's voice, scared but trying to hide it. Professional instinct made him freeze. Something in those voices triggered an alarm, some pattern recognition from his years waiting tables in places where people forgot service workers could hear. Then he heard it clearly. Your security detail is watching the main entrances. Easton's hand was already on the stall door. His brain was screaming at him to stay quiet, stay hidden, stay safe. He had a daughter at home who needed him. Getting involved in whatever this was could get him killed, could leave Sophia orphaned, could destroy the small fragile life he'd built from the ruins of his past. But he also heard the terror in that woman's voice, barely controlled. And he thought about Sophia, about the world she was growing up in, about the kind of man he wanted her to remember. He opened the stall door and stepped into the worst moment of Summer Holt's life, about to make it either much better or catastrophically worse. What happened next would replay in Summer's mind for months afterward, usually in the small hours when sleep refused to come. The man in the paint-stained jeans moved with a speed that seemed to violate physics, closing the distance between himself and the tall man before any of them could fully process that he was attacking. His hand shot out, not a wild punch but something precise, fingers extended and aimed at the tall man's throat. The tall man brought the knife up instinctively to block, which turned out to be exactly the wrong move. Paint-stained jeans redirected, his palm striking the inside of the tall man's wrist with a crack that echoed off the marble walls. The knife clattered across the floor, and before it stopped skittering, the tall man was stumbling backward, his hand hanging at an odd angle. The broad man charged forward like a freight train, all muscle and momentum. Paint-stained jeans dropped low, impossibly low, one leg sweeping out in an arc that caught the broad man's ankle. 300 pounds of muscle went airborne for a moment. That seemed suspended in time, then crashed into the wall with enough force to crack the tile. Syringe Man tried to grab Summer, probably thinking she was the easier target. She surprised both of them by kicking him hard in the knee, all those unused self-defense lessons finally paying off. He stumbled, and paint-stained jeans was there, moving with that same unnatural economy of motion. A strike to the solar plexus left Syringe Man gasping for air. A follow-up that looked almost gentle, but dropped him to the floor completely. The whole thing took maybe 15 seconds. 3 professional kidnappers lay groaning on the bathroom floor. The tall man was cradling his wrist and making sounds that suggested he was rethinking his career choices. The broad man was trying to get up but couldn't seem to make his legs work properly. Syringe Man had curled into a fetal position, the syringe itself now crushed under paint-stained jeans' shoe. Summer stood pressed against the wall, her mind struggling to process what she'd just witnessed. This man, who'd looked like he might run, who'd seemed like just another civilian in the wrong place at the wrong time, had just dismantled 3 professionals with the kind of efficiency that shouldn't exist outside of movies. You need to leave. Paint-stained jeans said to the 3 men, his southern accent somehow more pronounced now. Right now, before I change my mind about letting you walk out of here. You broke my wrist. The tall man wheezed. Could have broken your neck. Consider yourself lucky. He pulled out a phone. Not a new model, but a flip phone that looked ancient by modern standards. I'm going to count to 10. If you're still here, I call the cops. If you're gone, we all forget this happened. Your choice. The three men helped each other up, moving with the stiff uncertainty of people who'd just had their entire worldview shattered. They stumbled toward the door. The tall man looking back once, with an expression that mixed pain, confusion, and something that might have been professional respect. "This isn't over," he said, but it sounded hollow. "Yeah, it is. Paint. Stained jeans," replied calmly. "Because if I ever see any of you again, anywhere near her, I won't be nearly this polite." The door closed behind them, leaving Summer alone with her unlikely rescuer. The adrenaline that had been keeping her upright started to fade, replaced by shaking that started in her hands and spread through her entire body. "You should sit down." Paint, stained jeans said, gesturing to the small bench near the vanity. His voice had gone gentle, the command replaced by concern. "Adrenaline crash is about to hit you hard." Summer made it to the bench just as her knees gave out. She sat down heavily, trying to process everything that had just happened. In the space of 5 minutes, she'd gone from thinking her life was over to being saved by a man who looked like he should be teaching art class, not fighting off kidnappers. "Who are you?" she managed to ask. "Easton," he said. "Easton Brooks, and you're Summer Holt. Recognized you from the news. You just saved my life." "Seems like it." He was checking his hands for damage, flexing his fingers carefully. "Sorry about the mess. Are you hurt?" Summer looked down at herself, as if seeing her body for the first time. Her wrist ached where the broad man had grabbed her, and she'd probably have bruises tomorrow, but nothing serious. "I'm fine. How did you do that?" Easton shrugged, looking uncomfortable with the question. "Took some classes a long time ago. Guess muscle memory kicked in." "Some classes," Summer repeated, hearing how absurd it sounded. "You took down 3 professionals like it was choreographed. They weren't as professional as they thought." He moved to the door, checked the hallway, then locked the bathroom from the inside. "But they were serious. Someone sent them specifically for you. The war criminal thing. The guy. Your software. Identified? You heard that? Hard not to. Look, we need to get you back to your security team. Those guys might regroup, bring reinforcements. You have a detail here. 3rd floor, near the ballroom. How did you know about my security?" "Billionaire CEO at a charity event." "You'd be stupid not to have security. And from what I've read, you're anything but stupid." He pulled out his ancient flip phone again. "What's their number? We'll have them meet us at a safe location." Summer rattled off the number, watching as Easton made the call with calm efficiency. His hand was steady, his voice authoritative, as he explained the situation to her head of security. No panic, no drama, just clear communication that got the point across. While he talked, Summer studied him properly for the first time. The paint stains on his jeans weren't just surface level, they were ground in, the kind that came from years of work. His t-shirt had a small hole near the hem. His shoes were worn but clean. Everything about him suggested someone who existed in the same economic universe as the people who cleaned hotel rooms and served food, not the people who stayed in those rooms and ate that food. But the way he moved, the way he'd handled those men, suggested training that didn't come cheap. Military maybe, though he seemed too young to be retired. Private security, though that didn't track with the paint-stained jeans and service job. "They're on their way," Easton said, ending the call. 5 minutes. We'll wait here where it's secure." "Thank you," Summer said, and the words felt massively inadequate. "I don't know how to properly thank you for what you just did." "You don't need to thank me." He leaned against the wall near the door, positioning himself between her and any potential threat. Anyone would have done the same. No, they wouldn't have. Most people would have run or hidden or pretended not to see. You could have been killed. Easton was quiet for a moment. "I have a daughter," he said finally. "She's 7, and I thought about her, about the world I want her to grow up in. The kind where people help each other instead of looking the other way. So I helped." Something in the way he said it made Summer's throat tight. This man, with his paint-stained jeans and his flip phone, had risked his life for a stranger because he wanted his daughter to live in a better world. "What's her name?" Summer asked. "Sophia." His face transformed when he said it, worry lines smoothing into something softer. "She's probably asleep by now. Mrs. Kim next door is watching her. She's going to kill me for being late again." "You were working tonight?" "Waiting tables next door. Got pulled over here for catering overflow." He checked his phone, grimaced. "Was supposed to be done an hour ago." Summer pulled out her own phone, remembered it was shattered on the floor. "Can I borrow your phone?" He handed it over without hesitation. She called her assistant, gave rapid instructions about getting this man's information, making sure he was compensated for his time, ensuring there were no consequences from his employer for the delay. "You don't have to do that," Easton protested. "You saved my life. The least I can do is make sure you don't lose your job." She handed back his phone. "Plus, I'm going to need your contact information. The police will want statements, and my security team will need to debrief you. I really don't need to be involved beyond this." "You're already involved. Those men saw you. They know you helped me. That makes you a target too." Summer stood up, her legs steadier now. "Look, I don't know what your story is, why someone who moves like you do is working restaurant jobs, but you put yourself at risk for me. The least you can do is let me make sure you're protected." Before Easton could respond, there was a knock on the door. A voice called out, "Miss Holt, it's Davidson. We have the floor secured." Easton unlocked the door, stepping back as 4 men in dark suits entered, led by a man in his 50s with the alert eyes of someone who'd spent a lifetime in security work. Davidson took in the scene: the broken phone, the cracked tile where the broad man had hit, Summer's torn dress and emerging bruises, and his jaw tightened. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" "I'm fine, thanks to him." Summer gestured to Easton. "3 men tried to kidnap me." Mr. Brooks intervened. Davidson's gaze shifted to Easton, assessing. "You took down 3 hostiles alone. They weren't expecting resistance." Easton said with a shrug. "Element of surprise." "Uh-huh." Davidson clearly didn't believe it was that simple, but he was professional enough not to push. "We need to get you out of here, Miss Holt. There's a car waiting at the service entrance." "Mr. Brooks comes with us," Summer said firmly. "He's a witness and potentially a target. We protect him too." "Ma'am, that's not protocol." "I'm changing protocol. He saved my life, Davidson. We protect him, or you can start looking for a new job." Davidson held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. "Understood. Mr. Brooks, stay close to Miss Holt. We'll move as a unit." They left the bathroom in a tight formation, Summer in the center with Easton beside her, surrounded by security. As they moved through the hotel service corridors, Summer found herself replaying those 15 seconds of violence. The way Easton had moved with such precision, such control. The way he'd ended the threat without killing anyone, showing a restraint that suggested not just training but discipline. Who was this man who worked in restaurants but fought like a professional? And why did she have the feeling that saving her life tonight was going to complicate his life in ways he couldn't yet imagine? The car ride to Summer's downtown office building was tense and silent. Easton sat in the back seat next to her, hyper-aware of how out of place he looked in this world of luxury vehicles and armed security. His paint-stained jeans seemed to glow under the car's interior lights, a neon sign advertising that he didn't belong. Summer was on her phone, a backup device that Davidson had provided, making calls in rapid succession. Her voice had shifted from the scared woman in the bathroom to something else entirely. The CEO, who commanded billions. Crisp. Authoritative. Allowing no room for argument. "I want full surveillance of that bathroom. I want to know how they bypassed hotel security. I want background checks on every maintenance worker hired in the last month," she was saying to someone. "And get me everything you can find on Easton Brooks. Work history, education, criminal record if any. Everything." Easton shifted uncomfortably. He understood the need for information, especially given what had just happened. But having his life investigated felt invasive in a way he couldn't quite articulate. Summer ended the call and turned to him. "Sorry. That probably sounded cold. You're protecting yourself. I get it. I'm also trying to understand who just saved my life." Her gaze was direct, searching. "You're not what you appear to be, Mr. Brooks." "I'm exactly what I appear to be. A single dad working 2 jobs to make ends meet." Single dads working 2 jobs don't usually dismantle 3 trained kidnappers in 15 seconds. Easton looked out the window at Seattle's nighttime. Skyline sliding past. "I took martial arts classes for years. Started when I was 12, kept with it through my 20s. Karate, specifically Shotokan style. Got pretty good at it." "Pretty good," Summer repeated. And there was skepticism in her voice. "Had a studio for a while. Taught classes. Mostly kids." "That was before." He stopped himself. "Before what?" "Before life got complicated." They arrived at Sterling Tower. Summer quickly corrected him that it was Holt Industries Tower, and were ushered through private elevators to the executive floor. The offices were empty this late at night, just security personnel and the skeleton crew that kept a tech empire running 24/7. Summer's office occupied the corner of the 40th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of Elliott Bay that probably cost more than Easton made in 5 years. The space was minimalist, but warm, with art that actually meant something instead of the corporate bland stuff most offices displayed. "Nice paintings," Easton said, moving closer to examine a piece that looked like a Pacific Northwest sunset filtered through abstract emotion. "You know art? I'm a painter. Well, trying to be. Between the coffee shop shifts and restaurant work, I paint." He studied the piece more carefully. "This is Isaiah Parker's work. The Coastal Memory series from 2019. Didn't know any of these were in private collections." Summer looked surprised. "You know Parker's work?" "Anyone serious about contemporary art knows Parker. He died 3 years ago, massive heart attack at 42. His paintings quadrupled in value overnight, which is tragic. Because he spent his whole life struggling, finally gets recognition, and he's not alive to see it." "That's exactly what happened," Summer said quietly. "I bought this piece directly from his widow, paid significantly more than market value, because I thought she deserved it." Easton turned to look at her properly. "That was kind." It was right. She moved to her desk, where multiple monitors were already displaying information. "My team works fast. I've got your preliminary background check. That was quick. I pay for the best." She scanned the screens, her expression shifting as she read. "Easton Brooks, 35, born in Nashville, moved to Seattle 8 years ago, currently employed at Sunrise Coffee and Elevation Restaurant. Before that, you owned Brooks Martial Arts Academy in the Belltown neighborhood. Studio closed 6 years ago due to financial difficulties. Bankruptcy." Easton supplied. "You can say it. Not exactly a secret." Summer kept reading. "Before the studio, you were an artist in residence at the Seattle Art Museum. Before that, you attended the Rhode Island School of Design on a full scholarship. Graduated top of your class. You had a solo exhibition in New York that got significant critical attention. Then you came back to Seattle and opened a karate studio instead of pursuing your art career. Why?" Easton was quiet for a long moment. The question touched on things he didn't talk about, wounds that hadn't fully healed. "I got married," he said finally. "My wife, Claire, she was from Seattle. We met in New York at my exhibition opening. She was a writer, brilliant and funny, and convinced I was going to be the next great American painter. We got married fast, probably too fast. Moved back to her hometown because she missed the rain." Summer waited, not pushing, just listening. "I kept painting, but the art world is brutal. Gallery representation dried up. Commissions were scarce. And suddenly, we had a baby on the way. Sophia. So, I opened the karate studio because I was good at it and it was steady income. Or it was supposed to be. What happened? Claire got sick. The words came out flat, emotionless, because that was the only way he could say them. Ovarian cancer, stage 4, by the time they caught it. We had some insurance but not enough. Medical bills buried us. I was teaching classes during the day, painting commissioned work at night, taking any job I could find. It wasn't enough. Summer's expression had softened. I'm sorry. She fought for 2 years. Sophia was 5 when Claire died. By then, the studio was gone, the house was gone, everything was gone except debt and a daughter who'd just lost her mother. So I took the coffee shop job, the restaurant job, whatever paid, and I stopped painting anything that mattered because commissioned pet portraits pay better than art. That's why you're working service jobs with your background. That's why I'm doing whatever it takes to keep my daughter fed and safe. Easton met her gaze directly. I don't regret any of it. Sophia is everything. But yeah, some days I miss who I used to be. Summer stood up from her desk and moved to the windows, looking out at the city lights. My mother died when I was 8, she said. Cancer too. My father poured everything into her treatment, sold our house, borrowed from everyone. She died anyway. He couldn't handle it, started drinking, died 2 years later. I ended up in foster care. Easton hadn't expected that. The billionaire CEO with the tragic backstory felt like a cliché. Except her voice carried the weight of truth. I spent my teenage years bouncing between homes, using school as an escape. Got a full ride to MIT, worked 3 jobs to cover living expenses. Built my first facial recognition algorithm as a sophomore project and sold it for enough money to start my company. I was 23. That's impressive. That's survival. Summer corrected. Same as what you're doing. We both lost people we loved, and we both rebuilt from nothing. The only difference is luck and timing. My algorithm happened to hit the market at exactly the right moment. Your art career got derailed by circumstances beyond your control. Your algorithm was brilliant. That's not luck. And your paintings are brilliant. I looked up your New York exhibition while my team was running your background. The critics called you a master of emotional landscapes. One review said you painted feelings instead of scenes. Easton felt his chest tighten. He hadn't read those reviews in years, had deliberately avoided looking back at what might have been. Point is, Summer continued, you're not just some guy who works 2 jobs. You're an artist who sacrificed his calling for his daughter. You're a martial arts master who walked away from his studio. You're someone who's been through hell and came out still willing to help a stranger in a bathroom. That's who saved my life tonight. I'm really just trying to make rent and keep Sophia happy. You're more than that. And tonight proved it. She turned from the window to face him. Those men who tried to take me, they're professionals, probably ex-military or intelligence. My security team confirmed it from the bathroom footage. They knew exactly what they were doing. And you stopped them like it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. I was terrified. But you did it anyway. That's what courage is. Before Easton could respond, Davidson knocked on the office door. Miss Holt, we have information on the hostels. And we've confirmed Mr. Brooks' apartment building. We've stationed a team there for protection. Wait, what? Easton stood up quickly. Why would you do that? Because you're a witness to an attempted kidnapping of a high-value target. Davidson said matter-of-factly. The people behind this will want to eliminate anyone who can identify the kidnappers. That includes you. Sophia, Easton said, his voice tight with fear. My daughter is there. We know. There's a team watching her specifically. Mrs. Kim is cooperating fully. Your daughter is safe. Summer moved closer to Easton. I told you, you're a target now because you helped me. I take care of the people who take care of me. I didn't help you for protection or money or anything else. I know. That's exactly why you deserve both. She gestured to Davidson. What do we know about the attack? Davidson pulled up a tablet, displaying photos and information. The 3 men fled the hotel, but we have clear footage of their faces. They match known operatives from a private security firm called Blackpoint Solutions. The firm has connections to several international clients with less than legal business interests. The war criminal, my software identified, Summers said. Most likely, Viktor Kozlov, the Bosnian businessman your tech flagged in Dubai 6 months ago. He's currently in custody awaiting extradition, but his organization is still operational. They have the resources and motivation for this kind of retaliation. So, this isn't over, Easton said. No, Davidson confirmed. They'll try again. Different approach, different operatives, but they'll try again. Summers' phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, then showed the screen to Davidson. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Easton asked. The kind where someone just posted security footage of you fighting off 3 men to social media. It's already gone viral. She turned the phone so Easton could see. The video showed him moving through the bathroom, taking down each attacker with precision. The caption read, "Mystery hero saves tech CEO from kidnapping." Easton felt his stomach drop. No, 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 this can't get out. It already has. 3 million views in the last hour. You don't understand. Easton started pacing, his mind racing. I can't be public. Sophia's safety depends on us being invisible. If people know who I am, where I live, if I become some viral hero, that puts her at risk. From who? Summer asked gently. Besides the people who already know about you from tonight. Easton stopped pacing. His hands clenched into fists. He looked at Summer, at Davidson, at the office that represented a world so far from his own it might as well be another planet. From everyone, he said quietly. From the world that takes people like us and grinds them down. I've spent 8 years keeping my head down, staying invisible, making sure Sophia has a stable, quiet life. And now I'm going viral for being a hero. That's not protection. That's exposure. Summer studied him for a long moment. What if I could fix this? The exposure, the safety concerns, all of it. You can't unviral a video. No, but I can control the narrative. I can provide real security, not just for tonight but ongoing. I can make sure Sophia is safe, that you're safe, that your life doesn't get destroyed because you did the right thing. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's payment for services rendered. You saved my life, Mr. Brooks. Let me return the favor. The next morning, Easton stood in his tiny apartment kitchen making breakfast while Sophia chattered about a dream she'd had involving dragons and ice cream. The security team outside his building felt surreal, like he'd woken up in someone else's life. Mrs. Kim had confirmed that men in suits had been watching the building all night. Sophia thought it was exciting, like they were in a movie. Easton thought it was terrifying. His phone still, the ancient flip phone that Summers' assistant had promised to replace, buzzed with a number he didn't recognize. He answered cautiously. Mr. Brooks, this is Catherine Reeves, Miss Holt's executive assistant. Miss Holt would like to meet with you this afternoon at 2 o'clock to discuss ongoing security arrangements and compensation for last night. I have to work, Easton said automatically. We've already contacted both your employers. You've been given the day off with full pay. A car will pick you up at 1:30. She hung up before he could protest. Easton stared at his phone, feeling control of his life slipping away like water through his fingers. At exactly 1:30, a black car pulled up outside his building. The driver was professional and silent, the kind who'd seen enough that nothing surprised him anymore. They drove through Seattle's midday traffic to Holt Industries Tower, where Catherine Reeves met him in the lobby with the kind of smile that was warm but clearly practiced. Mr. Brooks, Welcome. Miss Holt is running a few minutes behind board meeting. Can I get you coffee? Water? I'm fine. Thanks. She led him to a conference room that was bigger than his entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the city, and the table could have seated 20 people comfortably. He felt massively out of place in his clean but worn jeans and the button-up shirt that was his nice outfit. Summer arrived 15 minutes later, looking exhausted but polished in a navy suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent. She was trailed by Davidson and another man in an expensive suit who radiated lawyer energy. "Easton, thank you for coming," Summer said, gesturing for him to sit. "This is David Chen, my attorney. We need to discuss the situation." The situation being that I'm now viral video famous and apparently need a security detail? Among other things. Summer pulled up her tablet, showing him news articles. The story had exploded overnight. Mystery hero saves billionaire. Viral vigilante's identity unknown. Who is the man who stopped a kidnapping? "They don't know it's me yet," Easton noted. "They will," Chen said. "The internet is very good at identifying people. We estimate you have maybe 24 hours before someone matches your face to social media photos, old art exhibition pictures, or karate tournament records." "Tournament records are under a different name," Easton said. "I competed as E.J. Brooks. That buys us maybe another day," Chen said. "But not much more." Summer leaned forward. "Here's what I'm proposing. We get ahead of this. I make a public statement thanking you, praising your heroism. We control the narrative before it controls us. In exchange, I provide security for you and Sophia, set up a trust fund for her education, and hire you." "Hire me to do what?" "I'm not a bodyguard." "No, you're an artist. A very good one. According to the critics. I want to commission a series of paintings for Holt Industries' new headquarters building. 20 pieces, your choice of subject, full creative freedom. I'll pay you what you're actually worth, not what the market thinks struggling artists deserve." Easton felt his chest tighten. "You're offering me charity dressed up as a job." "I'm offering you a job dressed up as a job," Summer corrected. "I've seen your work online. The early stuff from your New York exhibition, the emotional landscapes everyone raved about. That's what I want for my building. Art that means something, that makes people feel instead of just decorating walls. And the security, the trust fund, that's all just coincidence? That's payment for saving my life, separate transaction." She slid a folder across the table. "The commission contract. 6 months to complete 20 paintings, payment of $50,000 per piece. 1 million total, half up front." Easton stared at the number. $1 million. He could pay off Claire's medical debt that still haunted his credit, could put Sophia through any college she wanted, could stop working 2 jobs and actually have time with his daughter. It was too much, too easy, too good to be true. "What's the catch?" he asked. "No catch. You paint, I pay. That's how commissions work. Commissions don't usually come with security details and trust funds." Summer's expression shifted, something harder sliding into place. "You saved my life, Easton. Those men were going to kidnap me, probably kill me eventually. You stopped that from happening, and now you're in danger because of it. This isn't charity. This is me making sure that doing the right thing doesn't destroy your life. I have a daughter to protect. Getting involved with billionaires and kidnapping plots and viral videos, that's the opposite of protection." "Staying invisible won't protect you anymore," Davidson interjected. "You're already involved. The people who sent those kidnappers know your face. They have resources to find you whether you accept Miss Holt's offer or not. The question is whether you face that threat alone or with proper protection." Easton stood up, suddenly needing space. He moved to the windows, looking down at the city 40 floors below. Somewhere down there, Sophia was at school, drawing pictures and making friends, and living in blissful ignorance of how complicated her father's life had just become. "I can't," he said finally. "I appreciate the offer, all of it. But I can't let Sophia grow up in this world." Security details, threats. People, watching our every move. That's not the childhood I want for her. What childhood do you want for her? Summer asked, coming to stand beside him. One where her father works himself to death at 2 jobs? Where you never have time to paint, to be who you really are? Where she watches you sacrifice everything and learns that's what love looks like? The words hit harder than Easton expected. That's not fair. It's completely fair. You're so busy protecting her from external threats that you're not seeing the internal cost. When's the last time you painted something you cared about? When's the last time you weren't exhausted? When's the last time you felt like yourself, instead of just a collection of jobs and responsibilities? That's what being a parent is. That's what being a struggling parent is. It doesn't have to be. Summer touched his arm lightly. I grew up watching my father destroy himself trying to save my mother. After she died, he couldn't function because he'd made his entire identity about sacrifice. Don't do that to yourself. Don't teach Sophia that love means erasure. Easton felt something crack inside him. Some wall he'd built to keep functioning. I don't know how to be anything else anymore. It's been so long since I was just Easton instead of Sophia's dad, or the guy making your latte, or the waiter bringing your food. I don't even remember what my art looked like when I cared about it. Then maybe it's time to remember, Summer said gently. Take the commission. Paint something that matters. Let me handle the security and the logistics. Let someone help you for once. Why do you care this much? You don't even know me. Because you risked your life for mine without hesitation. Because I see in you what I used to see in the mirror, someone brilliant who's been ground down by circumstances beyond their control. Because maybe helping you is how I thank the universe for sending you into that bathroom at exactly the right moment. Easton looked at her. Really looked at her. Behind the CEO polish and the billions in the bank, he saw someone who understood loss. Who knew what it meant to rebuild from nothing. Who was offering not just money, but recognition that what he'd sacrificed mattered. I need to think about it, he said finally. Fair enough. Summer handed him a card with her private number. But think fast. The people who tried to take me won't wait for you to decide if you want protection. They'll just act. Is that a threat? It's reality. And reality doesn't care about your comfort level. Easton spent the rest of the day in a fog, his mind circling Summer's offer like a planet trapped in orbit. He picked up Sophia from school, made her favorite dinner mac and cheese with cut-up hot dogs, and tried to focus on her stories about recess and art class and the caterpillar they'd found. But his mind kept drifting back to that conference room, to Summer's words about erasure and sacrifice, to the number in that contract, to the possibility of being an artist again instead of just a survivor. After Sophia was asleep, Easton pulled out his old portfolio from the back of the closet. He hadn't looked at it in years, couldn't bear to see what he'd been and compare it to what he'd become. But tonight, something made him open it. The paintings inside took his breath away. Not because they were technically perfect, though they were good, but because they were alive. Each canvas vibrated with emotion, with the kind of raw honesty that only came when you painted for yourself instead of for money. Emotional landscapes, the critic had called them. Easton remembered painting these pieces, remembered being so absorbed that hours disappeared, remembered Claire bringing him coffee and kissing his paint-stained hands, remembered believing his art mattered. When had he stopped believing that? His phone rang. The new smartphone that Summer's assistant had delivered that afternoon, top of the line with security features he didn't understand. Summer's name on the screen. Hello? Hello? I'm sorry to call so late, Summer said, but we have a situation. Easton's blood went cold. Sophia? She's fine. The team is watching her. But we intercepted chatter about another attempt. They're planning something for tomorrow, trying to grab you instead of me, using you as leverage. Of course they are. Easton sat down heavily on his threadbare couch. What do I do? Let me bring you in. You and Sophia. I have a secure property outside the city, fully staffed, completely safe. Just until we can neutralize the threat. Run and hide. That's your solution? Strategically retreat until we can eliminate the problem permanently. Yes. Easton thought about Sophia sleeping in the next room, about men with syringes and knives and guns coming for them because he'd done the right thing, about a world where helping people got you targeted. There has to be another way, he said. There is. You accept my offer. The commission, the security, all of it. You let me build a protective barrier around you and Sophia that's so solid these people can't touch you. Art studio in a secure building, apartment in a safe complex, guards who know what they're doing. You paint, I pay, everyone stays alive. And Sophia grows up thinking this is normal? Armed guards and secure buildings, and always looking over her shoulder. Summer was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. My foster parents used to tell me I was lucky to have a roof over my head, that I should be grateful for food and clothes and not ask for more. But you know what I needed more than gratitude? I needed someone to see me as more than a burden. I needed someone to invest in my potential instead of just managing my survival. That's different. How? You're managing Sophia's survival beautifully. But what about her potential? What about showing her that when someone offers to help, it's okay to accept? That asking for support isn't weakness, it's wisdom? Easton closed his eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices. If I say yes, if I take your commission, I need creative control. Not just painting what you want, but painting what matters to me. Even if it's uncomfortable or raw, or not suitable for corporate walls. I'm counting on uncomfortable and raw. That's what makes art matter. And Sophia comes first. Always. If the security situation affects her negatively, if she's scared or unhappy, we're done. No matter what the contract says. Agreed. Her well-being is non-negotiable. And I want to work. Not just paint, but actually work. I'm not a kept artist in an ivory tower. I need to feel useful. You can teach at the community center we fund. Art classes for kids who can't afford them. It's part of our outreach program. Easton opened his eyes, looking around his tiny apartment. At the couch where he slept. At the kitchen where he made endless variations of cheap meals. At the closed door, behind which his daughter dreamed, safe for now, but vulnerable to threats he couldn't fight alone. Okay, he said, the word feeling like jumping off a cliff. I'll do it. But we do this my way. I don't become some trophy artist you parade around at galas. I paint what I want, teach who I want, live as normally as possible given the circumstances. Deal. I'll have Catherine send over the revised contracts and security protocols. We'll move you into the secure apartment tomorrow. That fast? The threat is real, Easton. We don't have time for slow transitions. She paused. Thank you for trusting me. I'm not sure I do. But I trust that you want to keep Sophia safe, and right now, that's enough. After hanging up, Easton sat in the dark apartment for a long time. He'd just agreed to let a billionaire essentially take over his life. To move into her world, accept her protection, paint for her company. Everything in him screamed that this was a mistake, that accepting help was the first step toward losing himself completely. But then he thought about the paintings in his portfolio. About the artist he'd been before life demanded he become something smaller. About Sophia growing up watching him shrink versus watching him create. Maybe Summer was right. Maybe love wasn't just sacrifice. Maybe it was also choosing to be whole so you could show your kid what wholeness looked like. He pulled out his phone and texted Summer. When do we start? Her response came immediately. How about right now? I'm outside. Easton went to the window and looked down. Sure enough, there was Summer's car, idling at the curb. He could see her in the back seat, looking up at his building. Against his better judgment, he grabbed his jacket and went downstairs. Summer was standing beside the car when he emerged, looking surprisingly casual in jeans and a sweater, her hair down instead of up, in its usual CEO style. "Couldn't sleep," she said by way of explanation. "Kept thinking about our conversation. Wanted to make sure you were really okay with this." "I'm not okay with any of it," Easton admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway because the alternative is worse. Honest, I appreciate that." She gestured to the car. "Want to take a drive? I'll show you the apartment, the studio space. Let you see what you're actually agreeing to. It's almost midnight. Best time to see the city. No traffic." Easton knew he should say no. Should go back upstairs and get what little sleep he could before his life changed completely. But something about the way Summer stood there, vulnerable despite her billions, made him nod. They drove through Seattle's empty streets, and Summer pointed out landmarks and told him stories about building her company from nothing. She was different like this, without the CEO armor. More real, more human. The secure apartment building was in Capitol Hill. Modern, but not ostentatious. The unit itself was twice the size of his current place, with 2 actual bedrooms and a view of the Space Needle. "Sophia will love this," Easton said, standing at the window. "There's a park 2 blocks away, very safe, good schools nearby. The building has a gym, a library, even a small art room that residents can use. You thought of everything. I'm good at logistics." Summer moved to stand beside him, "But I'm still learning the human part. The part where I don't accidentally steamroll people while trying to help them. You're doing fine." "Am I?" "Because I keep thinking about what you said, about not wanting charity, about wanting to feel useful. I don't want to take away your agency while trying to protect you." Easton turned to look at her. "Why does this matter so much to you?" "Really?" Summer was quiet for a long moment. "Because when I was 16, homeless, and sleeping in my car between foster placements, someone helped me. A teacher who saw that I was brilliant but drowning. She got me into a program for at-risk youth, helped me apply to colleges, wrote recommendation letters. She didn't just give me money, she gave me a path forward." "What happened to her?" "She died 5 years ago. Car accident. I never got to thank her properly, never got to show her what her investment in me became." Summer's voice was thick with emotion. "So maybe I'm helping you because I couldn't help her. Maybe I'm paying forward what I can never pay back. Does that make it charity?" "No," Easton said softly. "That makes it grace." They stood there in the empty apartment, 2 people who'd lost too much and were trying to build something from the wreckage. Outside, the city glittered with promise and threat in equal measure. "We're going to make this work," Summer said with certainty. "You're going to paint again. Really paint. And Sophia is going to grow up safe and happy. And maybe we'll both learn that accepting help isn't weakness." "When do you learn that?" Easton asked. Summer smiled, sad and knowing. "I'm still working on it. But having you around someone who sees through the CEO act to the person underneath, that helps." "Is that what I do?" "You see people, Easton. Really see them. It's all over your paintings, that ability to capture not just faces but souls. You saw me in that bathroom, saw that I was terrified but trying to be brave. And you acted. That's a gift. Or a curse, depending on the day. Gifts often are." She checked her phone, grimaced. "I should let you get back. Tomorrow's going to be intense. Moving day, security briefings, contract signings. Catherine will handle most of it, but you'll need to be present." They drove back to Easton's apartment in comfortable silence. When Summer dropped him off, she said, "Thank you for giving this a chance, for trusting me even though you don't have to. Thank you for caring enough to push, for seeing me as more than just the guy who saved you. You're so much more than that," Summer said, "and I'm excited to watch you remember it." Easton went back upstairs to his apartment, to his sleeping daughter, and his uncertain future. But for the first time in years, uncertainty felt like possibility instead of threat. He pulled out his old sketchbook and started drawing, not a pet portrait, not a commission, but something from his own imagination. Lines flowed across the page, taking shape into something that might become a painting. something that mattered. Outside, the security team watched. Inside, Sophia dreamed. And Easton Brooks, artist and father and unlikely hero, began the long journey back to himself. The move happened so quickly that Easton barely had time to process it. Within 48 hours, he and Sophia were living in the Capitol Hill apartment, surrounded by boxes and the kind of security that made his daughter think they were movie stars. "Dad, why do we have bodyguards?" Sophia asked on their third morning, watching through the window as two suited figures stood by the building entrance. "Because I helped someone important," Easton said, keeping his voice light. "And sometimes, when you help important people, other people pay attention. Like heroes in movies? Something like that, Bug." The viral video had died down after Summer released a carefully crafted statement thanking a brave citizen, without naming him. Her PR team had managed to redirect the narrative toward corporate security protocols, effectively boring the internet into moving on to the next viral moment. But the threat remained real, even if it was no longer public. Easton's new studio space was in a converted warehouse in the industrial district, 1,500 square feet of natural light and possibility. Summer had equipped it with everything he could need: professional grade easels, a full spectrum of paints, canvases in every size. Walking into it felt like stepping into a dream he'd forgotten he had. But the dream came with complications. His first week painting produced nothing but false starts and frustration. He'd stare at blank canvases for hours, brush in hand, waiting for the spark that used to come so easily. The pressure of creating something worthy of $1 million commission was crushing. "You're overthinking it," Summer said when she stopped by to check on his progress. She'd started doing that. Casual visits that weren't quite dates but felt like more than business meetings. "I'm out of practice," Easton countered, gesturing at his failed attempts scattered around the studio. 8 years of painting pets and landscapes for tourists. "I don't know if I can still do this." "You can. You're just scared." She picked up one of his discarded sketches, studying it. "This is beautiful. Why did you abandon it?" "Because it's not good enough." "For who? Me? I already told you I want your truth, not perfection." She set the sketch down carefully. "Or is it not good enough for you? Are you afraid that the artist you used to be is gone?" The question hit too close to home. What if he is? Then, you become someone new, someone better, who's been through more, and has more to say. Summer moved closer, her presence both comforting and unsettling. "Stop trying to recreate who you were, and just paint who you are now." Their relationship was shifting into something neither of them had planned. Working dinners became regular dinners. Studio visits included long conversations about art and life and loss. Sophia adored Summer, drawn to her genuine interest in a 7-year-old's opinions about everything from dragons to the best pizza toppings. "Miss Summer gets me," Sophia announced one evening after Summer had joined them for dinner. "She listens like you do, Dad, like what I say actually matters. What you say always matters, Bug." "I know, but most grown-ups don't act like it. Miss Summer does." The complications multiplied when Easton received a call from his ex-mother-in-law, Margaret. He hadn't heard from her in 6 months, not since their last uncomfortable interaction about Sophia's upbringing. "I saw the news," Margaret said without preamble, "about you and that billionaire woman. Sophia is being dragged into some dangerous situation because of your choices." "Sophia is perfectly safe," Easton replied, keeping his voice neutral. "We have professional security. She should be with family. Real family. Not living in some high-rise with bodyguards." Margaret's voice was sharp with judgment. Claire would never have wanted this for her daughter. The invocation of his dead wife felt like a low blow. Claire would have wanted Sophia safe and happy. "She is both. I want to see her this weekend." "That's not possible right now." "Are you keeping me from my granddaughter?" "I'm protecting my daughter from a threat you don't understand." Easton rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building. "When things settle down, we'll arrange a visit." Margaret hung up without saying goodbye, And Easton knew she wouldn't let this go. She'd never approved of him, had only tolerated their marriage because Claire loved him. After Claire's death, Margaret had made several attempts to get custody of Sophia, arguing that a struggling artist couldn't provide proper stability. She'd been right then, but things were different now. Except they weren't. Not really. He was still dependent on someone else's generosity. Still one bad decision away from losing everything. Still proving Margaret's point that he couldn't provide for his daughter on his own. Summer found him that evening at the studio, staring at a blank canvas with a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched. "Bad day?" she asked. "My former mother-in-law thinks I'm endangering Sophia by accepting your help. She's threatening to pursue custody." Summer sat down beside him, her shoulder touching his. "Can she do that?" "Probably not. But she can make our lives miserable trying." Easton finally took a sip of the whiskey, grimacing at the burn. "She's right, though. I've dragged Sophia into a mess that isn't her fault." "You saved someone's life. That's not a mess, that's heroism. Heroism that requires my daughter to have bodyguards." "Temporary bodyguards," Summer corrected. "Davidson's team is close to identifying everyone involved in the kidnapping attempt. Once they're neutralized, life goes back to normal. Well, normal, with better security, and your art career resurrected." Easton turned to look at her. "Why are you really doing all this? And don't say it's just gratitude, or paying it forward. There's something more." Summer was quiet for a long moment. "Because you remind me of what matters. In my world, everyone wants something. Money, access, favors, connections. You just wanted to help. That's so rare, it's almost extinct. I'm not some noble creature. I have wants too." "Like what?" The question hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. Easton could feel the pull toward her, the way her presence made him feel seen in ways he hadn't experienced since Claire died. But wanting her felt like betrayal, like moving on meant leaving his wife behind. He started, then stopped. "I want to be enough on my own. Without help, without handouts, without security teams. Just me, being enough for my daughter." "You already are enough," Summer said softly. "Accepting help doesn't change that. It just means you're smart enough to recognize when fighting alone is harder than fighting together." Before Easton could respond, his phone rang. Davidson's name on the screen made his stomach drop. "We have a problem," Davidson said when he answered. "Margaret Brooks just filed for emergency custody of Sophia. She's claiming you're exposing her to danger and living off your employer in an inappropriate relationship. The hearing is in 3 days." The courtroom was smaller than Easton expected, less dramatic than television made it seem. But the stakes were higher than any movie could capture. Sophia sat in a waiting room with a court-appointed advocate, drawing pictures while her entire future was decided by strangers. Margaret sat on the opposite side with her lawyer, a man who looked expensive and competent. She didn't meet Easton's eyes, instead, staring straight ahead with the rigid posture of someone convinced of their righteousness. Summer sat beside Easton, not as his employer, but as a character witness his lawyer had insisted was crucial. She wore a navy suit that said "Trust me," and an expression that said "Try me." The hearing began with Margaret's lawyer painting a picture of instability. Easton's financial struggles, the recent security threats, the dependent relationship with a billionaire employer that raised questions about appropriate boundaries. "Mr. Brooks has repeatedly put his daughter in danger," the lawyer argued. "First, by living in poverty despite having the means to provide better. Now, by involving her in a situation with documented threats requiring armed security. The child deserves stability, not chaos." Easton's lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Walsh, whom Summer had recommended, countered with evidence of Sophia's well-being. Excellent school records, pediatrician reports showing a healthy and happy kid, statements from teachers and neighbors about Easton's devoted parenting. "Mr. Brooks is a single father who has sacrificed everything for his daughter," Walsh argued. "He worked multiple jobs to provide for her after his wife's death. He accepted employment that would give Sophia security and opportunity. These are not the actions of someone endangering a youngster. These are the actions of a devoted parent. Then came the testimony. Margaret took the stand first, her voice trembling with emotion as she described her dead daughter's wishes. Her concerns about Sophia being raised in inappropriate circumstances, her belief that a traditional family environment was best. "I just want what's right for my granddaughter," Margaret said, dabbing at her eyes. Claire would want her daughter raised with proper values, not exposed to violence and wealthy strangers who might disappear at any moment. When it was Easton's turn, he felt every eye in the courtroom on him. He talked about the morning routines with Sophia, the bedtime stories, the way she laughed at his terrible jokes. He explained the kidnapping attempt, his decision to accept Summer's help, his commitment to keeping Sophia safe while rebuilding his career. "I love my daughter more than anything in this world," Easton said, his voice steady despite the fear. "Every choice I've made has been about giving her the best life possible. Is our situation complicated right now? Yes. But Sophia is thriving. She's happy, she's safe, and she knows she's loved. That's what matters." Walsh called Summer to the stand next, and Easton watched her transform from friend to executive, her authority filling the courtroom. "Mr. Brooks saved my life," Summer stated clearly. "He did so without hesitation and without expectation of reward. I offered him employment because he's a talented artist, and I offered security because the threat against me extended to him. Our relationship is professional with mutual respect. His daughter is delightful, well-adjusted, and clearly adored by her father." Margaret's lawyer tried to suggest inappropriate intimacy, implying Summer was using her wealth to control Easton. Summer's response was ice. "I don't need to control anyone, counselor. I have a company to run. What I did was recognize talent and reward heroism. If that's inappropriate, then perhaps we need to reconsider how society treats people who do the right thing." The judge, a woman in her 60s who'd seen everything, asked Sophia's advocate for her assessment. The advocate described a bright youngster who spoke glowingly about her father, who was adjusting well to recent changes, who showed no signs of distress or neglect. "In my professional opinion," the advocate concluded, "Sophia Brooks is exactly where she should be, with a parent who loves her completely." The judge took a brief recess, and Easton waited in the hallway with Summer, his hands shaking from adrenaline. "Whatever happens," Summer said quietly, "we fight this. Appeals, higher courts, whatever it takes. She's my daughter. I can't lose her." "You won't. I promise, you won't." When they returned to the courtroom, the judge's expression was unreadable. "I've reviewed all evidence and testimony," she began. "Mrs. Preston, I understand your concerns come from love for your granddaughter. However, concern is not sufficient grounds to remove a youngster from a devoted parent. Mr. Brooks has demonstrated consistent, responsible parenting. The current security situation is temporary and professionally managed. His employment arrangement with Miss Holt, while unusual, shows pragmatism rather than poor judgment." Easton felt his lungs expand, hope flooding in. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "I'm troubled by the implication that accepting help when needed indicates weakness. Mr. Brooks lost his wife, faced bankruptcy, and rebuilt his life while maintaining his daughter's well-being. That shows strength, not instability. Petition for custody transfer is denied." The relief was so intense Easton thought he might collapse. Summer's hand found his under the table, squeezing tightly. Margaret stood abruptly and left without a word, her lawyer following. Easton didn't care. He'd won. Sophia was his. Later, after the paperwork was complete and they'd collected Sophia from the waiting room, Easton held his daughter close in the courthouse hallway. "We get to stay together, Bug," he whispered into her hair. "I know, Dad. I told the nice lady you'd never let me go." Sophia pulled back to look at him seriously. "You're the best dad ever. Even Grandma Margaret doesn't understand that like I do." Summer watched them with an expression Easton couldn't quite read, something soft and yearning. That evening, After Sophia was asleep, Summer came to Easton's apartment with champagne and takeout from an expensive restaurant. "Celebrating?" Easton asked, letting her in. "You won. Your daughter stays with you. That deserves celebration." They ate Thai food on his couch and drank champagne from coffee mugs because he didn't own proper glasses. The conversation flowed easily, touching on everything and nothing, until Summer asked the question that had been hanging between them for weeks. "What are we doing, Easton? This thing between us, what is it?" Easton set down his mug, considering. "I don't know. You're my employer, my friend, someone I'm attracted to but shouldn't be, because it complicates everything. What if I'm tired of uncomplicated?" Summer shifted closer. "What if I want complicated with you? I'm a mess. Single dad, broke artist, guy with security threats. I'm a mess too. Workaholic billionaire, with enemies and trust issues." She smiled. "Maybe we're the right kind of mess for each other." Easton knew he should be cautious, should consider all the reasons this was inadvisable. But Summer was looking at him like he mattered, like he was more than just the help or the hero or the struggling artist. She saw him completely and wanted him anyway. He kissed her, and it felt like finally exhaling after holding his breath for years. 3 months later, Easton stood in his studio surrounded by completed canvases. 20 paintings that told a story of loss and recovery, of single parenthood and unexpected heroism, of learning to accept help and finding yourself again. They were raw and honest, and exactly what Summer had asked for. She walked through the studio with her curator, examining each piece carefully. Easton watched her face, trying to read her reaction. "These are remarkable," the curator breathed. "The emotional depth, the technical skill, combined with vulnerability. This is museum-quality work." Summer stopped in front of the largest canvas, a piece Easton had titled Rescue. It showed 2 figures in a dark space, one reaching toward the other, but the perspective made it unclear who was saving whom. "This one," Summer said softly. "This is us, isn't it? I saved you in a bathroom. You saved me from drowning in my own life. Seemed fair to commemorate it." She turned to him, eyes bright. "They're perfect. All of them. You found yourself again. You helped me find myself again." Easton corrected. "You and Sophia, you both, reminded me I was more than just surviving." The opening of Easton's exhibition at Holt Industries' new headquarters became a major art world event. Critics came, collectors came, people who'd written him off years ago suddenly remembered his talent. The paintings were powerful enough to stand alone, but the story behind them, the viral video hero turned celebrated artist, added a narrative that captured public imagination. Margaret attended, surprisingly. She approached Easton during the reception, looking uncomfortable in the crowd of wealthy art patrons. "I was wrong," she said without preamble. "About you. About this situation. Claire would be proud of what you've become, how you've raised Sophia." "Thank you," Easton said, meaning it. "You can see her more often, if you want, now that things have stabilized." "I'd like that." Margaret glanced at Summer across the room, chatting with Sophia about one of the paintings. "She's good for you. Both of you." "Yeah, she is." The exhibition's success launched Easton back into the art world properly. Galleries started calling, collectors wanted commissions, and suddenly he had the problem of too much demand instead of not enough. But he was careful this time, selective about what work he accepted, protective of his time with Sophia. He also started teaching at the community center, classes for kids who couldn't afford private lessons. Watching young artists discover their voices reminded him why he'd fallen in love with art in the first place. Summer's security team eventually neutralized the threat from Kozlov's organization. Arrests made through careful investigation and international cooperation. The bodyguards became less constant, though Easton kept basic security measures in place. Some lessons you didn't unlearn. His relationship with Summer evolved naturally, neither rushing nor holding back. Sophia adored her, and the feeling was clearly mutual. They became something like a family, unconventional but real. 6 months after the custody hearing, Easton sold 3 paintings for enough money to fully pay off Claire's medical debt. He took the canceled debt notices to her grave, Sophia beside him with flowers they'd picked together. "Mom would be happy you don't have to worry anymore," Sophia said, setting the flowers on the headstone. "She'd be happy about a lot of things," Easton agreed. "Mostly about you. You're exactly who she hoped you'd be." "Am I allowed to like Miss Summer?" "Even though she's not Mom." Easton knelt down to Sophia's level. "Loving someone new doesn't mean forgetting someone we lost. Your mom will always be your mom. But hearts are big enough for more than one person." "Good, because I really like her." "Me too, Bug, me too." That evening, Summer came over for dinner, a regular occurrence now. They cooked together while Sophia did homework at the kitchen table, and it felt remarkably normal, despite how extraordinary the circumstances that brought them together had been. After Sophia was in bed, Summer and Easton sat on the balcony looking at the Seattle skyline. "I never thanked you properly," Easton said. "For everything you did, the commission, the security, fighting for me in court. All of it. You saved my life. Everything else was just returning the favor. It was more than that. You saw me when I couldn't see myself. You reminded me I was worth saving too." Summer leaned against him, fitting perfectly under his arm. "We saved each other. That's what people do when they care about each other. Is that what we're doing? Caring about each other? I think we're doing considerably more than that." She looked up at him. "I love you, Easton Brooks. I love your talent, and your devotion to Sophia, and your terrible coffee maker that I keep threatening to replace. I love that you see me as Summer instead of the billionaire CEO. I love who I am when I'm with you." Easton kissed her, pouring everything he couldn't quite articulate into the gesture. "I love you too. Against all logic and reason, I love you too." They stayed there as the city lights flickered below. Two people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances and built something beautiful from the wreckage. The single dad who'd become an artist again, and the billionaire who'd learned that wealth couldn't buy what mattered most. Somewhere in the apartment, Sophia slept peacefully, dreaming of dragons and paintings and the expanded family that had formed around her, safe, loved, and exactly where she belonged. 18 months after 3 men forced a CEO into a bathroom and a single dad changed everything, Easton Brooks stood in the Ashford Grand Hotel feeling like he'd stepped into an alternate universe. The charity gala was in full swing, nearly identical to the one that had brought Summer here that fateful night. Except this time, Easton wasn't working the event. He was attending it, wearing a suit that actually fit, standing beside Summer as she gave a speech about the Morrison Arts Initiative, a program funding art education in underserved communities, named after his late wife at his suggestion. "Art saved my life," Summer was saying to the assembled crowd of Seattle's elite. "Not metaphorically, but literally. The artist who created the pieces in our headquarters is the same man who stopped my kidnapping 18 months ago." Easton Brooks reminded me that heroism comes in unexpected forms, and that investing in artists means investing in people who see the world differently, who challenge us to be better. Sophia sat in the front row beside Margaret, both of them beaming with pride. His daughter wore a velvet dress she'd picked out herself and had already charmed half the attendees with her opinions on which hors d'oeuvres were best. After the speech, Summer found Easton in the crowd. "Want to see something?" she asked, taking his hand. She led him through the hotel's corridors to the 18th floor, to the bathroom where everything had changed. It had been fully renovated since that night, gleaming marble and perfect fixtures. No signs of the violence that had occurred here, the cracked tile where a man had hit the wall, the shattered phone that had scattered across the floor. "Why are we here?" Easton asked. Summer pulled a small box from her purse, opening it to reveal a simple gold band. "Because this is where I met the man I want to spend my life with." Seemed appropriate to make it official in the place where it all started. Easton stared at the ring, his heart hammering. "You're proposing? To me? Someone has to, and you're too traditional to go first." She smiled. Nervous. For maybe the first time since he'd known her. I know. We've only been together a year. I know people will say it's too fast, too complicated, that billionaires shouldn't marry struggling artists except you're not struggling anymore, and I don't care what people say. I love you. I love Sophia. I want us to be a family, officially. So, Easton Brooks, will you marry me? Easton laughed, the sound echoing off the marble walls where screams had once echoed. You know the traditional response is for the man to propose, right? I'm not traditional. That's why you love me. It's one of many reasons. He took the ring from the box, studying it. Simple, elegant, perfect. Yes. Obviously yes. Though, I'm going to propose back to you properly later, with a ring I picked out, and a speech that isn't hastily improvised in a bathroom. I'm holding you to that. Summer kissed him, and it felt like every moment since that first night had been leading to this one. They returned to the gala as an engaged couple, the news spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Sophia launched herself at both of them when she heard, squealing about being a flower girl, and could she please have a dragon-themed wedding, because that would be amazing. Later, as the gala wound down, Easton found himself standing in the same spot where he'd emerged from that bathroom stall, the place where he'd made the decision to get involved instead of hiding. Davidson approached, looking more relaxed than Easton had ever seen him. Never thought I'd see you at one of these events as a guest, Brooks. Life is strange, Easton agreed. You know, I've been doing security for 20 years. Seen a lot of close calls, a lot of brave people. But what you did that night, that was something special. No training, no preparation, just saw someone who needed help and helped. Anyone would have done the same. No, they wouldn't have. Most people would have run or hidden. You stood up. That matters. After Davidson left, Summer joined Easton again. What are you thinking about? About how 18 months ago I was washing my hands in this hotel, trying to make enough money to keep the lights on. About how I almost didn't open that stall door. About how different everything could have been if I'd made a different choice. But you didn't. You chose to help, and that choice changed both of our lives. She leaned against him. You gave me my life back. I gave you your art back. We gave each other a future neither of us expected. Think Sophia's ready for this. A new family dynamic, media attention, everything that comes with marrying a billionaire. I think Sophia could handle anything. She's got your strength and Claire's spirit. Plus, she's already planning our wedding down to the centerpieces. Easton pulled Summer close, looking around the hotel corridor where his life had pivoted. You know what the crazy part is? I'm grateful. For the kidnapping attempt, for the danger, for everything that happened. Because it brought me here. To you, to this life. To remembering who I was supposed to be. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best transformations, Summer said softly. Sometimes salvation really does come from the most unexpected places. They left the hotel hand in hand, stepping out into the Seattle night. Behind them, the Ashford Grand stood tall and lit, holding the secret of what had happened in that bathroom. A story of violence transformed into love, of desperation becoming hope, of two people who'd saved each other in all the ways that mattered. Easton thought about the paintings in his studio, the classes he taught, the daughter who believed her father could do anything. He thought about the single dad who'd been drowning and the billionaire who'd been isolated despite her wealth. Two people who'd found each other in the darkest moment and built something luminous from it. Sophia ran ahead to the car, already chattering about wedding plans. Margaret followed more slowly, smiling at the family they'd become. And Easton walked beside Summer, the woman who'd seen past the paint-stained jeans to the artist, underneath, who'd reminded him that accepting help wasn't weakness, but wisdom. In the distance, the city sparkled with possibility. And Easton Brooks, artist and father and hero, finally understood that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open a door when every instinct tells you to stay hidden. Sometimes, the worst moments are just the beginning of the best chapters. Sometimes, three men force a CEO into a bathroom, and a single dad walks in at exactly the right moment to change everything. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.